The first sign of trouble came at 0347 hours, when every satellite in Earth's defense grid went silent at exactly the same moment. Commander Sarah Chen stared at the blank screens in NORAD's command center, her coffee growing cold as technicians scrambled to make sense of the impossible. "It's not equipment failure," reported Lieutenant Morrison, his voice tight with confusion. "Every single satellite just stopped transmitting all at once. That's not how technology breaks down." Chen nodded grimly. In her 20 years of military service, she had never seen anything like it. Equipment failed gradually, in patterns you could understand. This was something else entirely. The answer came 12 minutes later, when the first alien vessel materialized in Earth's atmosphere above New York City. It appeared without warning. A sleek black craft the size of a city block, hanging motionless in the sky like a dark omen. Within an hour, similar ships had appeared over London, Tokyo, Moscow, and a dozen other major cities around the world. The message came shortly after, broadcast simultaneously on every communication frequency on the planet. The voice was smooth, almost pleasant, speaking in perfect English with no trace of accent. "People of Earth, we are the Kethvar Hunting Syndicate. Your planet has been selected for our most prestigious event, the Great Hunt. We have traveled from across the galaxy to participate in this ancient tradition. Your species shows promise as worthy prey." Chen felt her blood run cold. The voice continued with the casual tone of someone discussing the weather. "The rules are simple. We will send our finest hunters to your surface. They will select targets from your population, your warriors, your leaders, your strongest specimens. You may defend yourselves in any manner you choose. The hunt will continue until we have taken sufficient trophies or until we grow bored. We estimate this will require approximately 1 of your years." Static filled the airwaves for a moment before the voice returned. "To make this sporting, we offer you this courtesy. You may send a single champion to face our hunters directly. If this champion can defeat all of our hunting party, we will consider your species to have earned a reprieve. You have 1 of your days to present this champion. If no one comes forward, we will begin the general hunt." The transmission ended, leaving the world in stunned silence. Emergency sessions convened in every capital on Earth. Military leaders argued over response strategies while politicians debated diplomatic options. Some suggested nuclear weapons, others proposed mass evacuations. The aliens had demonstrated technology far beyond human capability. Their ships had appeared from nowhere, bypassing every detection system on the planet. In a secure bunker beneath the Pentagon, General Harrison Walsh reviewed files on his desk. The president had tasked him with an impossible decision. Select 1 person to represent all of humanity against an unknown alien threat. "Sir," his aide approached cautiously, "we've compiled the list you requested. Special Forces operators, martial arts champions, Olympic athletes, the best humanity has to offer." Walsh looked up from the files. "And? Honestly, sir? Without knowing what we're facing, it's all guesswork. These aliens obviously have advanced technology. Physical strength might not matter. Combat training might be useless against energy weapons or superior armor." Walsh leaned back in his chair. He had fought in 3 wars, commanded thousands of soldiers, made life-and-death decisions that affected entire nations. But this was beyond anything in his experience. "There's 1 more file, sir," the aide said hesitantly. "I almost didn't include it." "Why?" "The candidate doesn't fit the usual profile. Not special forces, not an Olympic athlete, just a regular Marine. But the recommendation came from someone whose opinion I trust." Walsh opened the file. The photograph showed a man in his early 30s, brown hair, steady eyes. Nothing particularly remarkable about his appearance. The name read, Staff Sergeant Marcus Reed, United States Marine Corps. The service record was solid but not exceptional. 2 tours in Afghanistan, 1 in Iraq. good conduct medals, marksmanship ribbons, the usual commendations of a career Marine. What caught Walsh's attention were the incident reports. During his second tour, Reed's unit had been ambushed in a narrow valley, outnumbered 4-1, pinned down by enemy fire, with no air support available. According to the after-action report, Reed had single-handedly flanked the enemy position, eliminated 7 combatants, and enabled his unit's escape. The report noted his exceptional tactical awareness and uncommon calm under extreme pressure. Another incident involved a hostage situation in Kandahar. Local insurgents had taken an Afghan family captive in a compound surrounded by civilians. Reed had volunteered for what military planners called a zero-probability mission: infiltrate the compound, neutralize the hostiles, extract the hostages, all without causing civilian casualties or international incident. He had succeeded. The report simply stated, Staff Sergeant Reed demonstrated remarkable patience, precision, and judgment. Mission accomplished with 0 casualties among friendlies or non-combatants. Walsh flipped through more pages. Reed had never sought promotion beyond his current rank, had turned down multiple opportunities for advancement. When asked why, he always gave the same answer. I'm good at what I do, sir. I'd rather keep doing it. Sir? The aide prompted. Should I contact the Special Forces candidates? Walsh closed the file. Something about Reed's record spoke to him. Not the heroics. Plenty of soldiers had heroic moments. It was the consistency. Mission after mission, year after year, Reed simply got the job done. No drama, no glory-seeking, just quiet competence. No, Walsh said finally. Get me Staff Sergeant Reed. Marcus Reed was cleaning his rifle when the call came. He was stationed at Camp Pendleton, between deployments, training new recruits in marksmanship and small unit tactics. The work was routine but important, turning civilian teenagers into Marines who might one day depend on their training to stay alive. The summons to Washington came as a surprise. Reed had never been to the Pentagon, had never imagined he would need to. The flight east gave him time to wonder what he had done wrong, or more likely, what someone thought he had done wrong. General Walsh met him in a conference room that Reed suspected cost more than he made in a year. The general was older than Reed had expected, with silver hair and eyes that had seen too much. Staff Sergeant Reed, thank you for coming. Yes, sir, though I'm not sure why I'm here. Walsh gestured to a chair. Have you been following the news, Sergeant? Some of it, sir. The alien ships, the broadcast. Sounds like science fiction, but the footage looks real enough. It's real, and they want to hunt us. They're giving us one chance. Send a champion to face their hunting party. If our champion wins, they leave. If not, Walsh shrugged. Reed absorbed this information without expression. And you're telling me because? Because I'm offering you the job. Reed blinked. Of all the things he might have expected, this wasn't one of them. Sir, with respect, I'm nobody special. Surely you have better candidates. Do I? Walsh opened Reed's file. 2 combat tours, exemplary service record, and something else. Every officer who's worked with you says the same thing. You don't quit. Ever. When things go bad, you find a way. When the mission seems impossible, you make it possible. Sir, facing alien hunters isn't exactly standard infantry training. Walsh leaned forward. Reed, I've got Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, Marines from Force Recon, all volunteering for this mission. They want the glory, the chance to make history. You know what none of them have asked? No, sir. What happens to everyone else if they fail? You're the first person to think about the bigger picture. That tells me something. Reed was quiet for a long moment. What do we know about these aliens? Next to nothing. They have ships that can appear anywhere without warning. They claim to be hunters from across the galaxy. They seem confident that hunting humans will be entertaining. Rules of engagement? There are none. They said we could defend ourselves any way we choose. I assume that means anything goes. Reed nodded slowly. Equipment? Whatever you want. Whatever exists, we can get it for you. I don't need much, sir. Standard gear will do fine. Walsh studied the Marine's face. You're actually considering this? Yes, sir. Though I have one question. What's that? How do I know when I've won? If I eliminate their hunting party, how do I know there aren't more ships waiting somewhere else? Walsh smiled for the first time since the crisis began. That's exactly the kind of thinking we need. According to their broadcast, they're sending their finest hunters for this event. Presumably, if you defeat them all, the hunt is over. Reed stood up. Then I accept, sir. When do we start? The aliens gave us 24 hours. We've used 16 of them. Then we better get moving, sir. As Reed left the Pentagon, he felt the weight of an impossible responsibility settling on his shoulders. Somewhere above Earth's atmosphere, alien hunters were preparing for what they expected to be an enjoyable sport. They probably imagined they would face Earth's finest warrior in some kind of arena combat. They were wrong on both counts. Reed wasn't Earth's finest warrior. He was just a Marine who did his job. And this wouldn't be arena combat. This would be war, fought on Reed's terms, using every advantage he could find. The aliens wanted to hunt? Reed would show them what it meant when the prey hunted back. 8 hours before the deadline, Reed stood in a military transport helicopter, flying toward the coordinates the aliens had transmitted. They had chosen a location in the Nevada desert, far from civilian populations. Smart of them, Reed thought. They probably wanted to minimize distractions. He wore standard Marine combat gear, digital camouflage utilities, body armor, tactical vest. His primary weapon was an M4 carbine, modified for long-range precision work. A sidearm combat knife and various tools completed his loadout. Nothing exotic, nothing high-tech. Just the tools a Marine used to do his job. The helicopter pilot's voice crackled through his headset. LZ in sight, Sergeant. You sure about this? Reed looked out at the desert landscape below. Flat, open terrain with scattered rocks and sparse vegetation. Excellent visibility. Minimal cover. The aliens had chosen well if they wanted a straight fight. I'm sure, Reed replied. The helicopter touched down briefly, just long enough for Reed to jump out. As it lifted off again, he found himself alone in the desert as the sun began to set. In the distance, he could see the alien ship, a dark silhouette against the evening sky. Reed checked his watch. 15 minutes until the deadline. Time to get to work. He shouldered his rifle and began walking toward what would either be humanity's salvation or his own death. But as he moved across the desert floor, Reed felt something he hadn't expected. Calm. This was familiar territory in a way. One Marine, impossible odds, people depending on him to get the job done. He had been here before. The aliens just didn't know it yet. The alien ship landed exactly at sunset, touching down with mechanical precision 200 meters from Reed's position. He watched from behind a cluster of boulders as a ramp extended from the vessel's belly, and 4 figures emerged. Reed raised his rifle scope to get a better look. The aliens were tall, perhaps 7 feet each, with lean builds that suggested both strength and speed. They wore form-fitting armor that seemed to shift color to match their surroundings and carried weapons that hummed with barely contained energy. Their heads were elongated, with large eyes adapted for excellent vision. Everything about them screamed apex predator. They moved across the desert floor with confidence, spreading into a diamond formation as they advanced. Reed could see them scanning the terrain, their heads turning with mechanical precision as they searched for their quarry. One of them stopped and touched a device on its wrist. A hologram shimmered in the air, showing a 3-dimensional map of the surrounding area. Reed smiled grimly. They were good, but they were making assumptions. They expected to hunt a single human in open terrain. probably thought this would be over quickly. Their formation was textbook for hunting dangerous game: maintain sight lines, cover all approaches, corner the prey, and finish it efficiently. The problem was that Reed wasn't prey. He was a Marine, and Marines had their own ideas about how fights should go. He let them advance until they were within 150 meters, close enough for accurate rifle fire, but far enough to give him room to maneuver. Then he opened fire. His first shot took the lead hunter center mass. The alien's armor absorbed most of the impact, but the force of the bullet sent the creature staggering backward. Reed was already moving before the alien hit the ground, rolling to a new position as energy beams scorched the rocks where he had been hiding. The hunters reacted faster than human soldiers would have. Within seconds of his first shot, they had identified his position and laid down suppressing fire while moving to flank him. Their weapons carved glowing furrows in the stone, filling the air with the smell of superheated rock. Reed had expected this. He had studied the terrain during his approach, identified 3 fallback positions and 4 potential ambush sites. As the aliens advanced on his first shooting position, he was already 50 meters away, setting up for his second shot. This time, he aimed for center mass on the alien to his left. The bullet struck true, and this time, the alien went down. Reed couldn't tell if he had killed it or just wounded it, but it wasn't moving. That left 3. The remaining hunters had learned from their comrade's mistake. Instead of charging forward, they took cover behind rocks and began a methodical advance. One of them pulled out a device that emitted a low, pulsing sound. Reed watched as the device projected some kind of scanning beam across the terrain. They were hunting him systematically now, using technology to locate his position. Reed realized that his conventional tactics might not work against opponents who could see through rocks or track his heat signature. Time to adapt. He belly crawled 30 meters to his right, moving toward a shallow wash that cut across the desert floor. The depression wasn't deep, but it would mask his movement from their scanners. More importantly, it led toward a series of rock formations that would give him multiple firing positions. As he moved, Reed's mind worked through the tactical problem. 3 remaining hostiles, superior technology, unknown capabilities. In Afghanistan, he would have called for air support or artillery. Here, he was on his own. But he wasn't helpless. These aliens might be advanced, but they were still following predictable patterns. They moved like hunters, careful, methodical, coordinated. That gave them strength, but it also gave them weaknesses. Reed reached the rock formations and chose his position carefully. From here, he could cover 2 approaches while having an escape route behind him. He settled his rifle across a flat stone and waited. The hunters appeared exactly where he expected them to. They had continued their methodical advance, trusting their technology to keep them safe. The scanning device showed them that no heat signatures were ahead, so they moved forward confidently. They didn't account for Reed's 3rd fallback position, which put him behind and to their left. His 3rd shot took another hunter in what Reed hoped was a vital area. The alien spun and fell, its weapon flying across the rocks. The remaining 2 hunters immediately went to ground, but now they had a problem. They weren't sure where the shot had come from. Reed watched them through his scope. They were communicating, though he couldn't hear their language. One of them pointed in his general direction, while the other worked frantically with the scanning device. They knew he was close, but in the rocky terrain, close could mean anywhere within a 100-meter radius. He had wounded or killed 3 of their number, but Reed knew he couldn't keep picking them off from long range indefinitely. The remaining hunters were adapting, becoming more cautious. Soon, they would change tactics entirely, and he needed to be ready for that. The change came sooner than expected. One of the aliens pulled out a different device, larger than the scanner. Reed watched through his scope as the alien activated whatever it was, and suddenly the air around the creatures began to shimmer. Personal shielding. Reed cursed under his breath. The aliens had been testing him, seeing what kind of weapons he used. Now they were adapting their defenses accordingly. He took a shot at the nearest hunter to test the shield's strength. His bullet struck an invisible barrier 3 feet from the alien's body and ricocheted harmlessly into the rocks. The shield glowed briefly where the bullet hit, then returned to transparency. The hunters began advancing again, now protected by their energy shields. Reed realized that his rifle was essentially useless against shielded opponents. Time for a new approach. He slung his rifle and pulled out 2 fragmentation grenades. The aliens had shields that could stop bullets, but shields had to have limits. Energy barriers strong enough to stop projectiles might be vulnerable to explosive force or shrapnel. Reed pulled the pin on the first grenade and counted to 3 before throwing it. The explosion echoed across the desert, and he saw one of the shields flicker and fail. The alien wearing it stumbled, apparently stunned by the blast. The second grenade followed immediately. This one landed closer to the remaining shielded hunter. The explosion was smaller than Reed expected. The shield had absorbed some of the blast, but it was enough to knock the alien down. Now Reed had a brief window while both hunters were disoriented. He sprinted from his position, crossing the open ground between the rock formations. The wounded alien was trying to reactivate its shield generator. Reed reached it first. The alien was larger and stronger than a human, but it was also injured and confused. Reed's combat knife found the gap between armor plates, and the hunter stopped moving. The last alien had recovered and was bringing its weapon to bear. Reed dove behind the body of its fallen comrade as energy beams scorched the air above him. This close, he could hear the alien's weapon cycling, building up charge for another shot. Reed had one advantage. The alien probably didn't want to damage its fallen comrade's equipment. That gave him a few seconds of cover while the hunter moved to get a clear shot. He used those seconds to grab the dead alien's weapon. The device was heavy and unfamiliar, but Reed had trained on foreign weapons systems before. The basic principle was usually the same: point the business end at what you want to destroy and activate the firing mechanism. The weapon had what looked like a trigger guard and a grip sized for alien hands. Reed wrapped his fingers around it and hoped he was holding it correctly. The surviving hunter appeared around the edge of its companion's body, weapon raised. Reed pulled what he hoped was the trigger. A beam of coherent energy lanced out, striking the hunter's center mass. Unlike Reed's rifle bullets, the energy beam punched straight through the alien's armor. The hunter collapsed immediately. Reed stood slowly, alien weapon still in his hands, and surveyed the battlefield. 4 alien hunters lay motionless in the desert sand. The immediate threat was over. But as he caught his breath, Reed realized this was probably just the beginning. These 4 had been a hunting party, not an army. There would be more aliens on their ship, and possibly other ships he hadn't seen yet. He needed to take the fight to them before they could send reinforcements. Reed examined the alien weapons and equipment scattered around the battlefield. Most of it was too unfamiliar to be useful immediately, but he pocketed several devices that looked like they might be important. The energy weapon was too large and unwieldy for extended carry, but he might need it again. More importantly, he now had intelligence about his enemies. They were physically formidable and technologically advanced, but they weren't invincible. Their armor could be penetrated, their shields could be overloaded, and their tactics could be predicted. They hunted like apex predators because that's what they were on their own worlds, but Earth wasn't their world, and Reed wasn't their usual prey. He began moving toward the alien ship. The vessel sat dark and silent in the distance, showing no signs of activity. Either the remaining aliens inside didn't know their hunting party was dead, or they were waiting to see what would happen next. Reed hoped for the former, but prepared for the latter. He approached the ship carefully, using every piece of cover the terrain offered. The vessel was larger up close than it had appeared from a distance, perhaps 200 feet long and half as wide, with a hull that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The boarding ramp was still extended. Reed could see light coming from inside, and what looked like a corridor leading deeper into the ship. No guards were visible, but that didn't mean anything. These aliens were hunters. They knew how to set traps. Reed studied the ship's exterior, looking for alternative entry points. The hull appeared seamless except for the open ramp, but there were what looked like sensor arrays and communication equipment mounted on the upper surface. If he could reach those, he might be able to disable the ship's ability to call for help. But first, he needed to know how many aliens were still aboard. Reed found a position where he could observe the ship from concealment and settled in to wait. Patience was a sniper's most important skill. If there were aliens still aboard, eventually they would reveal themselves. His patience was rewarded 20 minutes later when 2 more aliens emerged from the ship. These looked different from the hunters he had fought, smaller, wearing different clothing, carrying different equipment. They moved toward the bodies of their fallen comrades, speaking rapidly in their alien language. Reed counted carefully. 2 aliens outside, unknown number still aboard. The new arrivals didn't seem armed for combat. They might be technicians or medics rather than warriors. This could be his chance to gain access to the ship. He began working his way closer, using a dry creek bed to mask his approach. The aliens were focused on examining their dead comrades, trying to understand what had happened. One of them activated a device that projected holographic images, recordings from the hunter's equipment, Reed realized. They were reviewing the battle, analyzing his tactics. Reed watched as holographic images showed his movements during the fight. The aliens were learning about him, just as he had learned about them. Time to interrupt their education. Reed was within 50 meters when one of the aliens looked up from its device and saw him. The creature opened what Reed assumed was its mouth and made a sound unlike anything he had ever heard. A warbling cry that echoed across the desert. An alarm. The alien was calling for help. Reed sprint across the remaining distance, rifle raised. The alien that had spotted him was reaching for something on its belt, a weapon or communication device. Reed put 2 rounds center mass, and the alien dropped. The second alien was running toward the ship, still making that warbling cry. Reed tracked it with his rifle, led the target properly, and squeezed the trigger. The alien stumbled and fell 10 meters from the boarding ramp. But the damage was done. Whatever was inside the ship now knew that humans had found them. Reed heard sounds from inside the vessel. Mechanical noises, the hum of powering systems, what might have been alien voices. They were preparing for him. He checked his ammunition and equipment. Half his rifle rounds expended, 1 grenade remaining, various alien devices he didn't understand. Not much to assault a spacecraft with, but it would have to do. Reed approached the boarding ramp at an angle, staying out of the direct line of fire from the entrance. The corridor inside was brightly lit, with smooth walls that curved upward toward what he assumed was the ship's bridge or command center. No aliens were visible in the corridor, but Reed could hear activity deeper in the ship. He needed to move fast before they could organize a defense or call for reinforcements. Reed took a deep breath and stepped onto the alien vessel. Whatever happened next, he was committed now. Behind him lay the bodies of 6 alien hunters and the safety of retreat. Ahead lay the unknown dangers of an alien spacecraft and the fate of humanity. Marcus Reed, Staff Sergeant, United States Marine Corps, kept walking forward. The alien ship's interior was unlike anything Reed had seen in 20 years of military service. The corridors were wider than they needed to be, with walls that glowed with a soft blue light from no visible source. The air smelled strange, not unpleasant, but definitely not human. Everything was built for beings larger than people, with controls and interfaces positioned at uncomfortable heights. Reed moved forward cautiously, rifle ready. The corridor branched ahead, leading to what appeared to be different sections of the ship. He could hear activity from multiple directions, mechanical sounds, alien voices, the hum of advanced technology. The ship's design told him something important about its builders. These weren't pure warriors. The corridors were too wide for defensive purposes, the lighting too bright for stealth operations. These aliens built their ships for comfort and utility, not combat. They were predators, but civilized ones. That gave Reed an advantage. His enemies weren't expecting to fight aboard their own vessel. They had probably never faced a determined opponent who made it this far. He chose the corridor that led toward the ship's center, reasoning that important systems would be located there. The passage curved gently upward, and Reed found himself in what was obviously the ship's main command center. 3 aliens stood around a central console, their attention focused on displays showing the desert outside. Reed could see images of the battlefield where he had fought their hunting party, recorded from multiple angles. The aliens were analyzing his tactics, trying to understand how a single human had defeated their trained warriors. None of them had noticed Reed's arrival. Their backs were turned, and they were speaking rapidly in their own language. Reed had the drop on them, but 3 targets at once was risky with a rifle. Miss the first shot, and they would scatter or return fire. He decided on a different approach. "Excuse me," Reed said loudly. All 3 aliens spun toward him, their large eyes widening in what Reed interpreted as surprise. One of them reached for a weapon at its belt, while another backed toward what looked like an alarm panel. "I wouldn't," Reed said, keeping his rifle trained on the center alien while tracking the other 2 with his peripheral vision. "I'm here to discuss terms." The aliens froze. Reed could see them calculating, 3 against 1, but the human had already proven he was dangerous. The smart play was to listen before acting. One of the aliens spoke, its voice carrying the same smooth quality as the broadcast that had started this mess. "You are the human champion." "Staff Sergeant Marcus Reed, United States Marine Corps," Reed replied. "And you are?" "I am Hunt Leader Vextar of the Kethvar Syndicate. You have impressed us, human. The elimination of our hunting party was expertly executed." "Thank you, though I assume that's not why we're talking." Vextar's head tilted in what might have been amusement. "Indeed, we underestimated your species' capabilities. This is embarrassing. Our records indicated that humans were primitive, barely capable of interstellar flight." Reed kept his rifle steady. "Your records were incomplete." "Evidently. However, you should know that our hunting party was merely the advance team. There are 17 more ships of the hunting syndicate currently en route to your system. They will arrive within 1 of your months." Reed felt his stomach drop, but kept his expression neutral. "How many hunters?" "Each ship carries 50 warriors plus support staff. Over 800 of our finest, armed with weapons that make our advanced team's equipment look primitive." The numbers were staggering. Reed had barely managed to defeat 4 hunters with surprise and favorable terrain. 800 was impossible, no matter how good he was. "Why tell me this?" Reed asked. "Because," Vextar said, "we offer you a choice. Surrender now, and we will make your death swift. Continue to resist, and the incoming fleet will not simply hunt your warriors, they will cleanse your entire planet. Every human settlement, every population center, your species will become extinct." Reed absorbed this information. The aliens weren't just hunting for sport. This was a test. Fail, and humanity would be wiped out entirely. "What would it take to call off the fleet?" Reed asked. "Nothing. The hunt has been authorized by the Syndicate Council. It cannot be stopped. Then we have a problem." Vextar made a sound that might have been laughter. "We have no problem, human. You are one warrior. We are a galactic civilization." Reed studied the aliens' faces, reading their body language. Confident, but not completely relaxed. They were still nervous about him, even though they held what they thought were all the cards. "Show me the incoming fleet," Reed said. "Why?" "Because I want to understand what we're facing." Vextar spoke to one of the other aliens, which manipulated controls on the central console. A three-dimensional display appeared in the air, showing the solar system. Earth was a blue dot at the center, with 17 red dots moving toward it from different directions. Reed memorized the display quickly. The alien ships were spread across a wide arc, approaching from multiple vectors. Smart. It would be impossible for Earth's military to concentrate defenses against that kind of distributed attack, but the display told Reed something else. The ships weren't moving together. They were scattered across space, each one operating independently. That suggested they weren't designed to fight as a coordinated fleet. Impressive, Reed said. But I notice they're not military formations. We are hunters, not soldiers, Vextar replied with what Reed interpreted as pride. We do not need military formations to destroy primitive species. Maybe not, but there's something you should know about humans. What is that? Reed smiled. We're really good at learning from our mistakes. He had been backing slowly toward a bank of control panels while they talked. Now he was close enough to see the alien interface displays. Most of the symbols were incomprehensible, but some things were universal. Power indicators, status lights, communication arrays. Reed lunged sideways, away from the aliens, and opened fire. His first shot took Vextar's center mass. The alien leader dropped immediately. The second alien was reaching for its weapon when Reed's second shot found its target. The third alien was faster than the others. It got its weapon out and fired a beam that scorched the air where Reed had been standing. But Reed was already moving, diving behind the central console as more energy beams carved through the command center. The console provided good cover. But Reed knew he couldn't stay there. The surviving alien would either flank him or call for reinforcements. He needed to end this quickly. Reed pulled out his last grenade, cooked it for 3 seconds, and threw it toward the alien's position. The explosion filled the command center with smoke and debris. Reed used the confusion to move, circling around the console toward where the alien had been standing. He found the creature down, but still moving, trying to crawl toward what looked like an emergency communication device. Reed put 2 rounds in its head, and the movement stopped. The command center was his now, but Reed knew his time was limited. There had to be more aliens aboard the ship, and the explosions would have alerted them. He needed to work fast. Reed studied the control panels, looking for anything that resembled a communication system. After several minutes of trial and error, he found what he was looking for, a display showing the incoming fleet with status indicators for each ship. He couldn't read the alien text, but numbers were often universal. Reed worked through the interface, following logical connections until he found what appeared to be a communication frequency. If he was right, this would let him talk to the incoming fleet. A sound from the corridor made him look up. Footsteps, multiple sets, moving in formation. The ship's remaining crew was coming to retake their command center. Reed grabbed the communication device and spoke into what he hoped was a microphone. This is Staff Sergeant Marcus Reed, United States Marine Corps, calling the Kethvar hunting fleet. Static filled the air. Then a voice responded in accented English. This is Fleet Commander Jextal. You are aboard our advance ship. That's right. Your advance team is dead, Commander. All of them. Impossible. You are one primitive warrior. Check with your hunt leader Vextar if you don't believe me. Silence for several seconds. Then, Vextar does not respond. Because he's dead, along with his hunting party and his ship's crew. It's just me here now. The footsteps in the corridor were getting closer. Reed could hear alien voices, urgent and angry. What do you want, human? Jextal asked. I want to make you an offer. Turn your fleet around and leave this system, and I'll let you live. The sound that came through the communicator was definitely laughter. You threaten our entire fleet while trapped aboard a single ship? Commander, let me explain something about humans. We've been fighting each other for thousands of years. We've gotten very good at it. And one thing we've learned is that the best time to hit an enemy is when they think they're safe. You speak riddles! The aliens in the corridor were almost at the command center. Reed could see movement in the doorway. No riddles, Commander. Facts. While we've been talking, my people have been analyzing your ship's design and technology. Your vessels aren't warships. They're hunting platforms. Fast, maneuverable, but not heavily armored. Perfect for chasing down primitives who can't fight back. Your planet has no space-based weapons. We didn't yesterday, we do today. Reed wasn't bluffing exactly. He was betting on human ingenuity and the fact that Earth's military had been frantically working on contingency plans since the aliens arrived. Explain. Every nuclear missile on Earth has been retrofitted with maneuvering thrusters and targeting computers. Your ships are spreading out to attack from multiple directions, which means each one is isolated, with no support from the others. 17 ships, 17 nuclear warheads, one for each target. The first alien appeared in the doorway. Reed put 3 rounds center mass and the creature dropped. More would follow soon. Nuclear weapons cannot reach our ships in deep space. They don't have to. You're coming to us, remember? We just have to wait until you're close enough, then launch everything we have. Your ships aren't expecting a space battle. You're equipped to hunt primitives on a planet's surface. How well do you think hunting platforms will perform against coordinated nuclear strikes? Reed could hear more aliens moving in the corridor. His ammunition was running low and he was trapped in the command center. But the communication with the fleet commander was more important than his personal situation. You would destroy your own planet's atmosphere with nuclear detonations, Jextal protested. Space is big, Commander. We can detonate nuclear weapons well outside our atmosphere without affecting the planet. Your ships, on the other hand, will be vaporized. This is a bluff. Reed ejected his empty magazine and loaded his last one. Maybe. But ask yourself this. Would your Syndicate Council approve of losing 17 ships and 800 hunters to test whether a primitive species is bluffing? Silence on the communication channel. Reed could imagine the alien commander doing exactly the calculation Reed had suggested. 2 more aliens appeared in the doorway. Reed's shots took both down, but he was almost out of ammunition. Time for the final card. Commander, there's something else you should consider. I killed your advance team with primitive weapons and basic tactics. What do you think we'll do to your fleet with nuclear warheads and a month to prepare? You are one warrior. Your species does not have military discipline. Wrong again. We have something better than discipline. We have spite. You threatened our families, our children, our entire civilization. Every human on Earth is now personally motivated to kill your people. We don't just want to defeat you. We want to make sure no alien ever considers hunting humans again. Reed could see more movement in the corridor. The ship's remaining crew was preparing for a final assault on the command center. Last chance, Commander. Turn around and leave, or find out what happens when humans decide to make an example of someone. The communication channel was quiet for nearly a minute. Reed used the time to prepare for his last stand. He was down to 6 rounds and no grenades. When the aliens charged, he would take as many with him as possible. Finally, Jextal's voice returned. The fleet will reconsider our approach. The hunt is postponed pending consultation with the Syndicate Council. Smart choice, Commander. Do not mistake this for retreat, human. We merely choose to hunt you at a time of our choosing. Anytime, Commander. Anytime at all. Reed cut the communication and prepared for the assault he knew was coming. The aliens aboard the ship wouldn't just let him walk away, regardless of what their fleet commander had decided. But as he waited, Reed heard something unexpected, the sound of retreating footsteps. The aliens in the corridor were pulling back. Minutes passed in silence. Then Reed heard mechanical noises from other parts of the ship. Systems powering down, equipment being secured. The aliens were abandoning the vessel. Reed made his way carefully to the corridor. The ship was empty. Through a window, he could see alien figures in environmental suits working around what looked like escape pods. They were evacuating. 20 minutes later, Reed stood alone in the command center as the ship's remaining crew departed in their escape pods. Through the communication system, he could monitor their transmissions. They were reporting to their fleet commander that their vessel was compromised and the advance team was eliminated. Reed found the ship's external communication array and sent a message on all frequencies. "This is Staff Sergeant Reed calling Earth Command. Mission accomplished. The hunting party is eliminated and the fleet is withdrawing. I'm aboard their ship and ready for pickup." The response came immediately. "Reed, this is General Walsh. Are you injured?" "Negative, sir. I'm fine, though I could use a ride home." "Transport is en route. Reed." "What did you tell them?" Reed looked out at the stars through the ship's viewports. Somewhere out there, 17 alien vessels were turning around and heading back to wherever they came from. "The truth, sir. That humans don't make good prey." As Reed waited for extraction, he explored the alien ship. In the crew quarters, he found records and data files that would keep Earth scientists busy for years. In the armory, he discovered weapons and equipment that would revolutionize human technology. But most importantly, in the communication logs, he found records of the HFY Syndicate's operations throughout the galaxy. Hundreds of species, dozens of worlds, all hunted to extinction for sport. Reed made copies of everything. When the hunting fleet returned to their home worlds, they would find that Earth had shared their records with every spacefaring civilization in the galaxy. The Syndicate's hunting days were over. The rescue helicopter arrived 3 hours later. As Reed climbed aboard, he took one last look at the alien ship sitting motionless in the desert. "How did it go, Sergeant?" asked the pilot. Reed settled into his seat and checked his watch. The entire operation had taken less than 12 hours. "It went fine. Just did my job." "Your job was to save the human race." "Yes, sir. That too." As the helicopter lifted off, Reed closed his eyes and allowed himself to relax for the first time since the crisis began. The aliens had learned an important lesson today, that humans weren't prey. They were predators who had been sleeping, and now they were awake. 3 months later, Reed returned to his duties at Camp Pendleton, training new recruits in marksmanship and small unit tactics. The alien crisis had passed, and life had returned to something resembling normal. The recruits sometimes asked him about the aliens, about what it was like to face an enemy from the stars. Reed always gave them the same answer. Same as any other enemy. Find their weakness, exploit it, complete the mission. What he didn't tell them was that humanity had changed. The alien ship's technology was being studied and adapted. Earth's military was being reorganized around the assumption that they would face enemies from space again. And when they did, humanity would be ready. Reed had shown the galaxy that humans could fight. Now Earth's engineers and scientists were making sure that next time, humans would fight with the best weapons and tactics available. The HFY Syndicate had come to hunt humanity. Instead, they had created something far more dangerous, a motivated, united, and increasingly advanced species that understood exactly what was at stake. Marcus Reed, Staff Sergeant, United States Marine Corps, had done his job. The rest was up to humanity, and humanity, as always, was ready to get to work.